Welcome to Underqualified Thoughts, where two brothers-in-law have conversations stemming from their daily lives. Expect authentic, relationship-building discussions that time capsule the early years of these podcasters' families, careers, and pastimes.
Thank you for coming back to what we have now agreed upon is our 10th episode. And what are we going to talk about today, Caleb?
We have lots to share. Everything from next season thoughts to what's happening in the next episode to
bad interviews
to
LinkedIn social media growth of the pod.
That's right.
As well as
it's
a
been
potential
boring.
word of mouth new listener.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And everything in between. I basically said that I wanted to lead this episode because I anticipated to probably be one of our longer episodes, since we're kind of like cathartically just walking through the end of the season and what we're looking forward to. And because there are a ton of questions that have popped into my head over the week that I haven't asked you about, because I was like, oh, this is going to be great to just spring on him in the podcast. Perfect. So those questions, as well as I think we could also just talk about kind of almost like we're having a meeting where we're brainstorming as to what we're looking for the future seasons. Seasons? Ooh.
Seasons.
Wow.
Well, because if we're going to roll like the 10 to 11 episodes per season, that'll mean that we have a solid at least 4 seasons in a year.
By the time our money runs out.
That's right.
Sorry, our subscription runs out.
Subscription. Well, actually, it'd be like, 4 or 5 maybe, because we started in like September. I forget when.
Okay. So the reason we started recording when we did is because you were telling me a story, and just based off the lead in the story, I was like, you need to tell me this while we're recording for the first time, so we can start there.
In order to tell the story, though, we might need some background context.
Fill it in.
Shall I just kind of jump on this?
You can fill it in. What's the background context?
Okay. So, obviously, I've been looking for jobs. I'm trying to make the career jump.
Obviously, to the avid listener.
The avid listener. Which now we might have. That's
tens.
So, I was talking to Andy a week or two ago about how, you know what, this is, in some ways, good experience to list on, maybe not a resume, but like LinkedIn profile. It doesn't hurt.
That was in episode 9?
Yeah.
The most recent episode.
It makes sense. Like, we're putting effort into something.
Growing. Learning skills.
And learning skills. And using skills that we have. Communication, even though the first, season is probably a little rough, we're still learning. This right now is already way better than what it was on the first episode. Hands down.
Episode 7 was a banger.
Yeah.
Episode 5 or whatever, when we were in the car, low moment. Anyway,
so this reflection brought about this idea to me. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to post in my headline somewhere that I'm a co-host at Underqualified Thoughts.
Do you know where it came from?
Was that you?
Yeah. I listened to episode 9 on our way up here, and I didn't realize I did it, but I suggested that to you as a joke. And in that episode, there's a long pause, and then I say, "Oh no, you're actually going to do it," because I saw the look on your face, and well, dadgummit, you did it.
I did, and I went so far as to, because one of the OCD things about it is whenever you're creating a job description or experience. You can list, co-host at Underqualified Thoughts. And if you're working at a big company, it'll show their logo because they have an actual company page on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and made a company page on LinkedIn. Underqualified Thoughts podcast. You can look it up. 2 people. Well, actually, 1 person works there. 3 people follow it.
And to be fair, I will add myself once I post on LinkedIn about my job at Wells.
Yeah.
Which was funny because at first there was a small moment of, it wasn't disgust, but I was like, what the heck, man? Why'd you put yourself as the only employee? And it took me a second to realize, I'm like, oh, I have to say that I'm doing yourself.
And and Andy has bigger things at stake. Anyway, so today, my first story I was sharing with Andy was that maybe I need to think this through. All right, so here's the story. Basically, I was applying to this position that was a customer success sales type of position. Everything lined up. I got into the middle of the interview, and most of these interviews are like super chatty. Like the first one, they're just trying to vet who you are and kind of, can you communicate general thoughts?
Figure out if you're worth talking to. The layover test, if they'd want to spend time with you.
I will say, the first impression I had wasn't the greatest, because within 3 minutes of the meeting, the interviewer had to leave the meeting for like 10 minutes and then recall me because something happened. I understand things. Anyway, so that was the first thing that happened. I was like, okay, whatever. And then the interviewer proceeds to just talk about how this position's been in high demand and there's been so many people coming out of the woodworks. The same story. Basically,
you were one of 200 applicants received on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and the other 150 people that have applied are like internal referrals, and they're all great, and they know the company, and they have experience, and all this. Basically, I'm just thinking, like, why am I here then? Like, why did you even want to interview me? Like, what is my purpose here? So she's a good person, the interviewer is, and like, I'm still connected to her and all this, but she basically just went down a different path of like asking questions about like, what am I trying to do and achieve? And one of the questions was, so what are your hobbies? Like, what do you do for fun? And I basically listed everything but the podcast.
Wow.
I guess not knowing that she was looking at my LinkedIn profile and saw that I was a co-host at Underqualified Thoughts.
Go. When you first told me this story before we started recording, you told me it fit in so well, and I didn't take the time to think about it. This is so much better than I thought it would be, and I haven't even heard it yet.
Yeah. So, I'm listing things like golf. I enjoy the outdoors. I do a bunch of work outside.
That pickleball tournament.
Pickleball. Like, I'm active. And I just thought hobbies, like things outside of normal book work for me or computer stuff. And I was like, oh no, I think she's fishing. And then I heard about it and I was like, oh no, I didn't say anything about that. And so I think it exposed to me another level of, I just need to be able to defend like the positions that I'm holding. Even if this position isn't paid or anything like that, it's just something I'm doing.
How is she fishing?
Well, I'm confident she was looking for like, what other things do I bring to the table experience-wise? And that would have been a good talking point. Mm-hmm. She was like, so what's the podcast about? And at that point, I was just frantically thinking, how do I put this into like terms that...
You quickly opened up another tab, typed into the AI chat bot, and was like, tell me about this podcast.
Yeah, give me a script right now of anything. And so I just kind of gisted through like a general idea of what we're just talking about, our perspectives on things and like where we're at in our lives, the jobs and families and careers and stuff, just life. In mostly like-minded ways. And I sensed that she was...
Do you think everyone can hear that in the background?
Everyone who knows me knows exactly what I want to do to that dog.
Basically, for all those who don't know him...
Interpret.
The Harrison family, which our wives come from, has a dog. I would refer to it as a rat dog. Some people refer to it as a sweet dog, and I think they're wrong. The dog is a rat, the dog is spoiled, and the dog is helpless.
Delusion is here. Either I'm deluded or they're deluded.
And just to go on the record, we are not dog haters. I am not a dog hater. Caleb made a face. Maybe Caleb is a dog hater. I'm not a dog hater. I just don't like that dog.
I like a dog that has purpose.
His purpose is just to frantically run around the house and bark.
Okay. Anyway, so we apologize for all the interruptions.
We got triggered.
Okay, so back to the interview. I didn't give the best option, but today...
Basically, it sounds like you didn't plan to talk about the podcast.
I didn't. It just hit me. I was like, oh, wait, people are going to ask about this because it's clearly like up there on LinkedIn. It's a good thing to talk about, but I wasn't prepared for it at all. Mm-hmm. And so I think going into season 2, as today we're going to be doing some post-mortem operation here. I just think there's
No more Latin in this episode.
I just think there's some good things for me to take note there of, why are we doing what we're doing? How are we doing it, essentially, is another way of saying it, because, I don't know, the how is also important. Anyway, Andy, what are your thoughts?
On your interview, or this whole theory
just
this whole thought of what we're doing next?
Just start talking.
Not only are you done talking about this interview, you're done having to talk about it while pretending that dog is not barking upstairs. That makes a lot of sense, and that it basically sounds like you weren't prepared to give a reason or a defense or
anything,
a justification for why you do the podcast.
Well, it was so new to me that I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. Like, why did she ask about my hobbies? Like, that's not really a normal interview question.
Yeah, I mean, it is in like the whole, like, in the vein of the interview you're in, like the one where she's like, hey, we're just getting to know each other, see if we like each other.
Screening,
yeah, the screening.
I still think it's weird, but
which I definitely, I presume it's a more common question in a smaller company, like.
But this was a big company. Like it,
or maybe not a smaller company, maybe a company that's
mid-sized.
using more modern
maybe
practices.
Like maybe just different sectors. I mean, it was a sales position. Like, you're supposed to be a little bit more relational,
personable.
Yeah. Oh. Anyway, so that is a great segue into thoughts for next year and the next season.
Do you think she listened to an episode or a clip?
What?
The person who interviewed you? You think she checked it out?
No. Could
you imagine if she was like, yeah, my favorite episode was, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's happening?
What episode was that again? She actually was like, yeah, I've been asked to be a part of several podcasts in the past, and that's one of the things I do. And I was like,
flex.
I was like, none of those podcasts are.
Do you think she was like inviting herself to our podcast?
No, okay. I do not think that at all.
She goes, in the past, I've been asked to be on shows.
I think it was a flex of, yeah, I'm familiar with the podcast world, and basically your defense for your podcast sucks. That's what it felt like. But like I said, we're learning and growing.
Bad audio quality and all.
Dogs barking. Random edits that don't make sense.
Orders for seafood coming in.
Oh, man.
So, to bring up the next topic that I was thinking of and wanted to share, we may have a new listener to the pod, not this person who you interviewed or who interviewed you. So we have a friend at church named Rachel, and I don't bring up the podcast unless someone is already talking about podcasts.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I'm slowly venturing into like more and more scenarios where I'll bring it up or ways that I will present it. So our friend Rachel she achieved the dream that we all hope for. She applied for a job that asked for 10 years of experience. She did not have 10 years of experience, not even close. And she got the job like out of college. Wow. So she is the diamond in the rough, the needle in the haystack. She works for a startup that's working in nuclear power. And her job is just to, from what I understand, it could be way off, is just to read through all of these documents, both like the scientific documents of how it works and the legal documents of like what they're allowed to do for like the product that they're trying to innovate in that space. Which sounds like a miserable job to me. She's basically just like reading nonstop.
Sounds intense. That's what it sounds like.
Intense is probably more accurate. Subjectively, it sounds miserable. And she's so into it. She loves it so much that on the weekend, she says on Saturdays that she listens to a 2-hour podcast that is like the main focus and topic about it is the innovation in the nuclear space. And I was like, that is insane. And has nowhere near probably the conversations and the structure that we have in the sense that it's way more structured. It's way more intense.
Oh man.
But so I made a comment. It was really funny. I thought it was funny. I don't know if it actually came across that way, but I was like, have you considered listening to a podcast about anything, everything, and nothing all at the same time? And she was like, is that the name of the podcast? And I said, no. And I guess based off the look of my face, and Caitlin was sitting next to me, so she was making some gestures too. She just went, oh my goodness, is that a podcast you do? And I was like, yes. And so she said that she may listen to it, on Saturdays instead of that, nuclear energy podcast that she normally listens to, which I feel like would be a big step.
Rachel, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry for the IQ that is rapidly dropping on your behalf through listening to this.
The fact that we can't even keep watching and listening straight is how your IQ is dropping.
Let's think about this. What was the podcast you're saying? A nuclear?
Yeah, basically she works in the nuclear energy field, and the podcast is about that. Like talking about innovations and maybe even history. I don't know.
There's some people that are they're dumb. Like they really don't have it together. And like maybe they're gifted at something else.
Just to jump in, I don't think you're talking about Rachel.
No,
right?
I'm not talking about Rachel. I'm not. I'm talking about like maybe some of the kids I teach at school or like this, like just anyway.
Do it for the kids.
There's this. They just don't have it. Like they don't really care about words. They don't care about math. They just maybe care about, and they do cool things in life. I'm not saying they're just totally
on the bright side. Since they're kids, you can just say they don't have it yet.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's. But in college, they say the same thing. I mean,
yeah, you just keep saying yet until it's not.
Okay, controversy. Elon Musk.
You're not going to finish your thought, and you're somehow jumping to Elon Musk.
Same thought.
Okay.
I forget the quote, but essentially he said that, what was it? 10% of the workers do 50% of the work, or something.
Basically,
of that
really
nature.
small portion of people do the majority of the work.
Yeah, and he's basically like, just cut everyone that is not working to their full potential. Maybe it's just people are lazy. I don't really know. I'm not a scientist of that field. I don't know. But so then there's like this middle class area where I think most people fall, including myself.
Speak for yourself.
I said myself.
I know.
And then there's like this subset of like people inside of that middle class that think they're smart, and that's where Ben gets his average of like, what is that thing he says about half the people in the room and smartness or whatever? Help me out.
I mean, he says the phrase that like you don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
No. He said yes, but he says something like, if you polled everyone in a room and asked them if they thought that they were smarter than the other person in the room, you'd get a number larger than 50%.
So you're saying the majority of people think they are the smartest person in the room?
Or obviously it's impossible.
The smarter half of the room.
Yeah, because everyone thinks more higher. Anyway, so there's a subset.
Lot of people think higher themselves.
Yeah, we think more highly. And clearly by the last, 2 minutes of me talking, that's, not me because I don't know what I'm saying right now.
This is the origin of the podcast right now. We're going back to our roots.
Rachel, are you still with me? Okay, so look. So, Rachel, you're like...
Listen up, right here!
There's, the savant world that's, soaring above the mountains that listens to 2-hour podcasts of nuclear fission or whatever. And we're not on film, but my hand is above my head. It's there's those people way up there that, just good job.
So
thank you.
Just to recap, you just spent 2 minutes after I described the podcast that Rachel listens to articulate that she is smart. And you started that articulation by saying, some people are dumb. And then you went all this roundabout way to be like, you're at savant level, Rachel. Good job.
We only know 2 savants. I do, at least.
What, my wife and your wife?
Well, I don't think McKamey would. Anyway, she wouldn't classify herself, but nor would Caitlin. But the point is, Caitlin is savant.
McKamey says Caitlin is savant, and so we've picked up on it and called her savant.
Yeah, and so I guess Rachel's in there as well. Anyway, you'll have to let me know if Rachel actually listens to this.
Me too. I'll have to find out. I'll have to let myself know.
We are so smart.
We are geniuses. No, because I had Caitlin text Rachel earlier today to see if she had listened. And if she hadn't listened yet, I would tell her that I'm, withholding the shout out. Because I told her when I was telling her about it, I said the last two people, Rebecca and Madison, who I told to listen to it, and Caitlin's other friend, Katie, that I talked about it in the episode. And I haven't heard from them, whether or not they've listened to it. So
it's
I have no clue. But I told Rachel, I was like, because she made some comment about I told her how long the episodes were. I'm like, they're 30 minutes long. She's like, oh,
how short they are.
well, yeah. Well, she was like, oh, easy. I'll just binge through it. And I was like, what? Are you serious? And I was like, well, if you listen through, you'll eventually get to the point where it's modern day, or the episode we record right after I talk to you, and you'll hear your shout out. So,
are we just some people are just on a different level? 2 hours?
Well, of listening to a podcast.
What is the average of podcast time?
Well, I don't know, but think about it. A lot of people wouldn't go out and play golf without anything in their ears like you do. They would put headphones in and either listen to music or podcast or... Oh, Caleb.
I'm focused. I can't... this is just like today where I asked...
This is like when you thought the majority of people paid their home off early.
I also... get this. I also thought the majority of people didn't hang out with people on Christmas Eve. I figured that out today. Apparently people hang out on Christmas Eve.
Like people like family or people
Just
like friends?
Family. Families hang out on Christmas Eve.
I mean, my family, our Christmas Eve tradition was we'd go to the Christmas Eve service at church, then we'd come home. And have you seen A Christmas Story?
I don't know.
It's a movie.
It doesn't ring a bell.
It's the one where the kid, all he wants is a Red Ryder BB gun.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
So in that, they make a turkey for Christmas, then some dogs break into their house and eat it, and they go get Chinese food. So my family's tradition is we go to the Christmas Eve service at church, and then we come home, order Chinese food, or we pick that up on the way home, and then eat it while watching A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't quantify to me as hanging out. But
well, I got roasted today.
I suppose it's from the perspective of if people are coming into town, they're not likely coming into town right before Christmas and only for Christmas. So they'll already be in town, so might as well hang out.
I guess, yeah, if you have family coming. Anyway, so how did we get here? So
we are on tangent after... We were doing so well.
I know we've been so off in this episode.
If anyone is still with us, thank you. Kendall, thank you for listening this far. Because our first 5 minutes were solid, and we have just fallen apart.
I mean, why did we fall apart?
Yeah, we can look at that later. We can talk about that another time.
Okay.
We can't be that meta. We can't be analyzing the episode within the episode. We can only do so much.
So, at the end of the day, we understand that we need structure, especially if we're posting things on LinkedIn about this podcast.
Yes. Basically, you want to have a justification for why you do the podcast, and then you want to be pleased with the end result. Is what
Such
you're saying.
that it's able to be shared.
Yeah, we talked about this. The main goal is for it to be a time capsule, for us to have time together to have these conversations and just hang out, but also that maybe it might offer value to someone else.
And that last point is the one we're going to have to work on.
Yeah.
Unless there's just this overwhelming support, which if you support us, feel free to donate. You know my phone number. Send it to me through Apple Pay. Or
goodness.
Find me or Andy on Venmo.
This will not count as a charitable donation. We are for profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are a for-profit hobby.
Anyway, so this is going out before Christmas.
Yes.
And next, we're
going to sit down with the aforementioned Kendall, as she is our most loyal listener. Is that the best adjective?
Yeah, loyal is the best word for it.
Because I was going to say avid, but that just
active listener.
There you go. That's good. Yeah, basically, before we devolve into chaos today, and I still think the plan is going to be that I want us to talk about things that we're looking forward, that looking back and just be hey, these are things that I noticed we need to do better. These are things we're hoping to improve. And then what we'll do with Kendall is from someone who actually listens and is not the two of us. What did you enjoy? What didn't you enjoy? and what would you want to see?
Yeah.
As a bit of, obviously not to, just completely go away from the fact that we're just two brothers-in-law just sitting down talking about whatever the heck we want to, but it would help us get structure by hearing from someone who actually is willing to listen to us.
That's good.
Not bad, huh?
No, yeah, that's succinct. I guess we could have said that in 30 seconds at the beginning and called it done.
Yeah, there you go. Caleb, we went from 30 minutes to 30 seconds.
Sorry, Rachel.
Not enough time. On to the next episode.
Yeah. The binge is going to be easy.
So the first thing, then, unless do you have a thought?
No,
Okay.
I think you're going to lead into it.
So the first thing is I want to ask you a question. More specifically, I want you to join in me in this pact. We lamented 2 episodes ago that why didn't we ask for microphones for Christmas?
Oh, stupid.
Join me in this pact. Mama Harrison's going to give us $30. Inflation with no regard to inflation. She's been giving out $30 as long as I know. And we may get cash from other relatives. So I say that we make a pact.
That's good.
That's good. All of our cash
really good.
goes in and we buy 2 microphones.
Brilliant. I agree.
Because, boy, episode 9, it was so echoey. I don't know what happened.
Where were we?
It was the same as episode 8. The episode,
Where were we?
we were sitting at your house. You were sitting with your phone on the armchair, and I was holding mine in my hand.
Oh, dude.
And the episode 8 was fine, as far as I remember. But then I'm listening to episode 9, and it's super echoey in the beginning. And then I don't know what happened. At some point, there's like a minute-long stretch at some point in there, in the latter half, where it sounds like I'm like, or you or me, or is like crumpling paper, or maybe you were putting away the laptop, or just something. There was just like some loud,
So strange.
ridiculous noise going on.
Oh,
in the
like
background.
a brushing maybe of like surface?
Maybe.
Microphones would go a long way. Certainly. And again, charity, donations.
Well, we just said
Not
that
for profit
we're
now?
we're taking the quote unquote donations, aka the gifts that we get from Christmas.
So if you want to donate. And we'll use the gifts.
No, get out of here. We'll take our Christmas gifts. And
The
so
cash,
it'll
yeah.
depend. You will hear the quality of season 2, and you will have to then determine how much money we got for Christmas based off that.
That's right. No, so one of the problems with technology is that you buy expensive microphones.
Mm-hmm.
You then have to be obviously like have an audio interface, because some people don't realize this, but you have like microphones that need to be powered like by what they call phantom power. It's 48 volts of power fed through the audio interface that basically mixes everything and then outputs it to the USB, which goes into your computer.
So are you saying we cannot just buy the hardware of a microphone? We have to buy hardware that either comes
supports
with the
microphone.
software or is already supported by software we have?
We have software. We just need the audio interface, which is like a book-sized like interface that like has plugins and things.
Is it like an encoder and decoder?
Yeah,
Like you
kind
plug
of.
the microphone into
Yeah.
it and then it plugs into your laptop?
Yeah, exactly. Now, the only way we can escape this is if we have what do they call it? A USB mic, which goes down in quality a lot. They're a lot cheaper. We'll just have to assess the options.
Which I'm confident now you're going to obsessively spend the next week just like researching.
Hence, I'm standing up.
Yes, and so this is a seamless transition that none of you can see, but I'll seek to articulate with words. When Caleb started talking about the microphone, he stood up. And what I hope you might notice in the audio, we'll have to go back and see, is that you sounded more confident, happier, more full of energy. Because there is some research to show that when you are standing, there are more positive attributes in how you're speaking, like whether it's more energy or more interest is shown.
And your diaphragm's not crunched together and you're not sounding like you're wilting against a wall.
Exactly. As opposed to, if you're leaning back in a chair, not only, we all know the phenomena of you're not that tired, but you lay down and then all of a sudden your eyes are heavy and you're about to pass out and take a nap.
Welcome to the holidays.
Yes. The tryptophan that you've been putting in your bodies. So the one thing I want to address, we've each had it in different episodes.
Oh, it was bad.
But
in
you were
episode
the most
8.
recent offender of lack of energy.
It was so bad.
And
What
so-
happened to me? I don't know.
The pickleball tournament. You literally said,
Yeah, the next day.
no, it was the day before.
Yeah, the next day we would.
Yeah. The next day we recorded after the pickleball tournament.
Life.
So I think definitely something that it'll be tough to do this, I think, without making it feel fake or like we're presenting. But we definitely have these conversations, like we're talking, you and me, which obviously we are, but now we're doing it with the hope that people listen and care. And so I think we'll need a certain level of energy, which I'm positing that bringing the microphones will offer that, because we're not just going to be laying back in a chair or leaning into a couch holding this microphone. Maybe we will. But what I more likely suspect is that we'll actually sit at a table where both of the microphones sit.
And we'll probably have a computer in front of us.
You'll have a
some
computer in
notes
front of
and
us,
stuff
or
like
like I'll have like a notepad or something.
Yeah.
Or-
We'll use Chat GPT to create like a brief outline of what we want to talk about. That's legit. Like we could just say, hey, create this like 3 bullets outline on like these 3 things with subpoints that we might talk about.
Mm-hmm. And I think, so all of that, like, obviously I think what this first season was basically determining whether or not we wanted to do this. And by do this, I mean do this well.
Yeah.
Apparently, for whatever reason, we care enough about this. Maybe it's the shade that's been thrown at us. Maybe it's the actual fun of doing it, or
creating something is always fun.
Yeah, the enticing nature of like practically putting our hands on something and interacting with it in a way that we're gaining new skills and refining ones that we currently have.
I agree.
So I think the microphone will make me at least take it more seriously. And then it will be the first step of structure so that we're not just talking into our cell phones like we are on, like when you're having a phone call with someone.
Yeah. I think that one thing that would be, we joke about donations, and if you want to donate, feel free. But
we joke about donations?
I joke about it. But one thing that we would love for you to donate in a way, I think we is a good pronoun to use there, would be like if you have any comments or suggestions about like what you'd like to have us talk about or hear us talk about that you would like actually care about.
Is this when we come into the hard reality that no one's listening because no suggestions roll in?
Kendall sends me messages. Mom sent me messages. The 2 people.
You just said my friend who I see regularly and my mom.
Anyway, so if you 2 want to hear us talk about something particularly, we can come up with ideas all day long. But we would love to hear what you'd like to hear.
Which, by the way, Caitlin, when we listen to it together, she chimes in unsolicited, talking about our episode on unsolicited feedback or opinions. She chimes in opinions about what we should have done. Like the AI chat episode, she said it would have been a more enjoyable episode if we interacted with it longer into the episode rather than just interacting it for a little bit and then talking about it in theory.
She has a lot to say about something that she doesn't really like.
No, she just isn't as impressed by it as we are.
Did we talk about that on that episode? Okay.
Oh, we didn't talk about it on the episode. We talked about that after.
Oh, in person.
Yeah, she basically was just like, basically Caleb was, as you could tell in the episode, was super. Well, you couldn't tell because he was low energy.
You could really tell, yeah.
You were super gassed.
I was really excited about it.
About this new technology, and Caleb was like, "Of course they can do this. They can have cars driving themselves. Why wouldn't they be able to do this?"
Again, savant. That we're all at different levels. I mean,
and that's okay.
And that's okay. In some ways, we're better than others, and in other ways, we're worse.
Do you want validation for that, or you just want to stand in that statement?
I'm just standing on it. I don't need validation for that.
So then we talked about we're going to boost the audio quality, hopefully. Yeah. Who knows if that'll come. We're not going to delay the season until we get the microphones.
No, I mean, I'm confident. Let's be real. This is how this is going to work.
All right.
We get the money. The money is like $100 and maybe $100.
Which, by the way, now that you are going to Texas for Christmas, we're not going to get all of our money until New Year's because we're not exchanging gifts with this side of the family until
just do the
30th.
Math. Just do the math. The 30th?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Like I was saying, this is how this is going to work. we get the cash. Andy gives me the cash. I send him the Venmo because he wants the electronic cash.
Thank you.
Andy buys the stuff.
This is a very important tangent into our life.
Anyway, for heaven's sakes, I guess I walk down to Best Buy with all the cash. Weird. That would be weird.
Also, we need to consider if we're going to start interviewing, if we were going to consider doing more interviews, we will have to buy a third microphone.
Yeah,
but go on.
That would be a really good addition. Guys, think creatively about it. You are our what do you call those people? Our group
Inspiration?
thing? No, inspiration. You guys are the one. Send us ideas, please. You have our text numbers. I mean, our phone numbers. If not, go back to
you have our
episode
pagers.
4.
You have our home phone numbers. Give us a ring.
Yeah.
You got distracted, probably by me.
Oh, we were just outlining. So we're going to think about the microphones. Number one, we're going to work on the quality of our actual conversation.
By elevating the energy and the level.
Yeah.
Both elevating the energy during as well as doing. Because right now what we do is we show up. We're like, hey, hi. We're going to hit record? Okay, let's go. That's pretty much what it is.
We have to have some maybe Andy comes up with
pre-production meeting.
Yeah, and writes out some ideas, and I write out some ideas. I think we're both strong at writing, so I don't think that's a problem. Thanks, Mom, for everything you did for me. Last episode, this is tangent, but I think I thanked Pam for something, but I didn't thank Mom for... Oh, the gifts thing.
Mm-hmm. Your mom called you out?
Yeah. And anyway, thank you,
See, that's what's
Mom.
great. My mom, as far as I know, doesn't listen to this, so I'm not getting called out yet.
They went through all that effort, too, to pull it up on their phones and stuff.
They might be listening to it and they just might not be letting me know about it. Or maybe there wasn't a triggering thing in it, what you just experienced. So something I've been doing to improve. So there's two things. There's two reasons why I'm doing this thing. You see over on that table is a book that I've been reading. And I've also started reading The Morning Brew again. For two reasons. One, all Caitlin and I are talking about right now is Lily, keeping her alive, how she's frustrating us, how she's bringing us joy, so on and so forth, which is amazing. She is a blessing. But it becomes mundane at times where I'm like, for the past 3 days, all I've talked about is Lily. And so I've started reading that book so that Caitlin, and reading the brew and just keeping up with the news so that Caitlin and I have things to talk about outside of Lily. Second reason is for this podcast. So I actually have some of the things that I've articulated, the thing that, you notice how I was using the word justification earlier. I just finished reading in that chapter of the book. One of the many things that differentiates us from animals is that we seek to justify our actions when animals obviously just do it because they're doing it. It's ingrained
just
in their
trying
nature.
to justify, or I feel bad when I couldn't justify my statement with that recruiter.
Exactly. And so obviously reading is good for a ton of other reasons, and I'm sure there are more reasons than I can think of off the top of my head why I have started reading that book or been interested in reading again. But one of them is to have more areas of inspiration for this.
Yeah. I think that'd be really cool if we actually found a book that talked about a lot of things and then both read it and then we had the same thing.
But then we become a book club,
Yeah, but never mind. Yeah, you just do your thing, I'll do my thing, and then we'll bring.
Well, we could do it. I just think
individual-
a book would be a lot. This book is. We're not going to. If we sit down and read 260 pages of a book together and then talk about it, we're doing a book review.
We're going to start sounding like the book.
But what's totally reasonable is to read from different news sources. And then something earlier today that I looked at was there's this Twitter thread of this guy. Don't know who he is, but he has the blue check. So he's paying $8 a month for that. And he uses his Twitter account to rank the most quote unquote ridiculous headlines of the year. And so he just posts the image of the headline, and however many likes or retweets it gets adds up to a score. He then creates a bracket so that they can do headline of the year. And so I went through, thankfully I did, because I was just going to sit here and read them on the podcast without reading them ahead of time. And I read them, I was like, this isn't going to be funny and engaging. There was 16 headlines and 5 of them were funny to me. So stuff like that, like you just come across something random on the internet, like while you're reading.
Yeah.
And then that fills 5 to 10 minutes of a podcast episode talking about that.
Well, anyway, so structure and hopefully better quality is coming. Next week we'll be here we're not recording 2 episodes right now.
Huge.
So it will be individual.
This is a Underqualified Thoughts first time. We are probably going to go over 40 minutes, and the first time we are not recording back to back, which is most likely why we're going over 40 minutes.
Yeah. Anything else to say? Oh, you're leading this. You should ask that question.
Yes. So what have we talked about? We talked about, this is what will also help. We'll probably have an outline just and walk through and check
what
through.
We actually talked about. Yeah.
So we talked about your interview. We gave Rachel her shout out. Hopefully she comes through and actually listens. At some point during there, we devolved into absolute chaos and babbled like idiots for 5 minutes. Hopefully it's only 5 minutes.
It was longer than that.
And before that, which the listeners, if your editing skills are good, we were interrupted to order dinner. That was early on in the episode. And we then talked about what we're looking to get out of the podcast and what we're trying to, I guess, make it become. Yeah, I definitely am viewing it going, I feel like we've just been having just casual conversation and recording it. But now going to the new year, for whatever reason, you and I have this renewed vigor to make this actually a podcast.
Yeah.
I no longer get to make my joke that you're talking to the people and I'm pretending that they're not there, which is sad that I'm losing that. But
it is sad. But
it was necessary.
This is the thing.
If
I post this thing to LinkedIn, hey guys, this is what we talked about this past week, and then I share it there's going to be at least one person that clicks on it and listens to it.
Listens to it for a section.
A section of it, yeah.
Which, by the way, you're over 1,300 followers now. You got some clout. You can have this podcast blow up.
Well,
you could actually make us for profit, and you might have to stop soliciting money from our listeners because real people outside of our friend circle start listening.
Yeah, I just think it'd be really cool. There's people that engage with me on LinkedIn that I've never met. A guy the other day, I spoke to a guy in Austria, just about
proud of you for
success.
Talking to someone other than Caitlin's coworkers.
I know. Yeesh. We really need to get to season 2. It's so bad. Yeah, there's a lot there. Anyway, it is cool to see them engage and even them say, hey, it's fun to engage with you. It's good to see what you have to say. And I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 listeners that pop on just because of that. So, anyway.
Yeah, I definitely think we'll see what recording looks like in the future, especially if we have the better audio quality and we have a better structure. We might be able to record more at a time. Maybe we just go through a stretch where we record 2 a day for 2 a week for a month straight, so that we can just build up a log and then take more time to release ideas that we're interested in. Because I think something that would, 1, allow us to do that, and 2, would make this more valuable for me, as I see this as an exercise to grow in storytelling.
Yeah.
The best episode I think thus far was when we went on the tangent about me wearing suits at work, which neither of us could have planned for. And so obviously, the best thing, the thought that the best things are unplanned, I agree with in this sense. But what matters is that we have the structure and the ability to wade into topics that we weren't planning on and still have them be entertaining and captivating. So developing storytelling, like I've said, a story for another time, at least twice, about when I showed up to work and I wasn't wearing a suit and everyone else was.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of those stories in my life and your life where we can just talk about some ridiculous thing that happened to us, and it will be both entertaining, hopefully, by the way we tell it, and then it will also be relatable because someone will likely have been in a similarly embarrassing or exciting or sad situation. And that would allow us, because right now all of our stuff is dated because we've been talking about Lily being born or Christmas or Thanksgiving, which we can still do, but we could start recording episodes about just us telling stories, and then we can just slot those in wherever we want.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But of course, we need to keep the meta of talking about making a podcast while making a podcast.
Maybe less of the meta.
Nah, love the meta.
Maybe just a touch on the episodes, a 5-minute touch.
Do you think, and maybe those could even be recorded separately and then edited together, depending on how we release them?
Into a different podcast.
Wait, are you saying to a different podcast episode or a whole nother podcast?
A whole different podcast.
We're not already doing a spinoff after season 1.
It's funny.
The question that just popped into my head, are the chaotic commercials that you make just a season 1 thing, or are those coming back in season 2?
I don't know. If you have any feedback on that, audience, let us know.
That'll absolutely be a question we ask ask Kendall.
Yeah, I think she'll say yes. Keep it alive. She came to me several times. She was like, "Oh, that's like the best." Like she loved them.
If that happens, we're actually going to have to I'm going to have to make a contract where I get to approve the commercials before they go in the episodes.
Life happens. All right. Well, anything else? I'm pretty sure there's dinner up there.
There's no way. They ordered it while we were recording. There's no way.
That was 40 minutes ago.
Well, maybe. Anything else that this is basically our last, well, this is a hopeful statement. This is our last chaotic energy, no structure.
Be some in the next one. Some.
Yeah, but they'll be structured because we're talking to another person.
Yeah.
Like Kendall will ask, what are we doing? And we won't just be like, figure it out.
Start talking.
Just start talking.
You're a part of this now.
Just shine a flashlight or like one of those lamps in your face, like in those interrogation scenes.
Yeah.
So this is the end of an era, which I believe is kind of why we leaned into it in this episode, where we were a bit chaotic. At times we were put together. And you can see that there is more refinement that's needed, but there has been refinement already.
One episode at a time, guys. Look at the trend, okay? It's not about...
You just said one episode at a time and then look at the trend. You just said focus at one at a time. Big picture.
I'm just... you take one step forward, 2 back, and then you end up ahead in life eventually. It's just like the elevator. It goes up and down, but it always goes up.
You take 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in an interview trying to explain what the heck your podcast is about because you put it on your LinkedIn without thinking it through.
Yeah.
I think that's a great, when we look back on this, when we're famous example. And we're interviewed, like that'll be a great story to tell of like how chaotic it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
And how just haphazardly we did things.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What a time to be alive.
Yes.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Goodbye.
To all a good night.